יולדת בן ונולד בן ויקרא שמו Emmanuel. I don't have the stone Tanakh in front of me, but I read it for you in Hebrew. הנה העלמה יורה ויולדת בן ויקרא שמו Emmanuel. הנה העלמה יורה ויולדת בן ויקרא שמו Emmanuel. Behold the Alma, and that's the great controversy. The maiden, the young woman, the Alma shall conceive, give birth to the son, and will call his name Emmanuel. Yeah. Are you with me? Right. Now the question is, who's Emmanuel? That's the question. The Jews teach, the anti-missionaries, the counter-missionaries teach, that that Ahaz would have a son, and what was Ahaz's son's name? Hezekiah, Hezekiah. And that Hezekiah, through the king, Hezekiah, and the ministry of Hezekiah, Emmanuel. Elohim would be with us. And was that true? Partially. It was partially true. Read the exploits of Hezekiah. He was a good king. He was one of the few good kings in Judah. He was such a good king, he even loved Ephraim. He even invited Ephraim in the north down to celebrate Pesach with Yehudah in the south. 2 Chronicles, I believe it's 35. He wanted to restore and retain the restoration of the two houses of Israel. And so the Jews said, your virgin birth, your Mashiach. What are you talking about? This is about Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz. Well, not so fast. And we start closing with this. Start closing. Don't get too excited. Number one, if Hezekiah was the promised Emmanuel, why did the prophets after Hezekiah still speak about the coming of the Messiah?
In the future. Wow.
You're all not hearing me. If Hezekiah was the promised son of the young woman, Ha'alma, then why do the prophets after Isaiah? Were there any prophets after Isaiah? Well, let's try a few. Zephaniah, Zechariah, Haggai, Habakkuk, Nahum. Want to keep going? There were many prophets after. No, Hosea was a contemporary of Isaiah. Hosea and Amos were contemporaries of Isaiah. Malachi wrote when? 400 BCE. When was this prophecy given to Ahaz? 720, 730 BCE, a time difference of 300 years. If this prophecy is talking about Hezekiah's child, Ahaz's child, King Hezekiah, why do the prophets continue to prophesy Moshiach would come if he had come?
Good point.
You getting this now?
Good point.
Yeah.
Are you getting this?
Yeah, come on now.
The Great Almah Controversy, number one. Number two, the sign was not for Ahaz, who bypassed the opportunity to receive the sign for the whole house of Israel. So Yahweh went directly to the whole house of David. He had a chance to be the conduit, the vehicle, the means, the road, the communication method through which the whole house of David would receive this messianic prophecy of the virgin birth of the Messiah. But because he was false in his pride, and he was false in his humility, and his humility really was pride, and his pride was really not humility, therefore Yahweh said, shut up, nevertheless, Yahweh himself will give you a sign, even though you're pretending you don't want a sign. And now I'm not giving it to you, King Ahaz. I'm addressing the entire Beit David. Turn your neighbor and say the entire Beit David. So next time a Jewish person tells you, oh no, everybody knows this is not talking about what you call the J guy. No, everybody knows that. This was fulfilled in the next generation when King Ahaz has Hezekiah. Okay, number one, the prophets continue to speak of Mashiach. Number two, this is an alt for the whole house of Israel. And notice the you in verse 13 and 14, very important. Hear now, O house of David, is it enough, you weary men, that you also weary my Elohim? Therefore Yahweh will give you a sign. Look, the maiden conceives. The you. See verse 13, you? The you is plural in verse 13 and 14. Very important. Very important. Listen carefully, because y'all going to lose you now if you're not tuned in. The you in verse 13 and 14 is the plural. See that? Yahweh gives you a sign, Ted? But it's not you Ahaz, it's you in the plural. Hello? Yeah. Who's the plural? Who's the plural you?
The
12 tribes.
Yeah.
The whole house of David.
Yeah.
Very important. You don't see that in the English.
Right.
And you won't see it in the Greek. You got in the Hebrew it says the you, listen, the you in verse 11 is in the singular. Why? Who was Yahweh speaking to in verse 11?
Ahaz.
Take you right on. Who was Yahweh speaking to in verse 11?
King.
The king. So the you is singular.
Yeah.
But, and you can go home and look this up in the Hebrew, check the prophet, make sure he's not misleading you. Check him out. Always check him out. Find where I'm wrong, correct me with a word, and I'll receive it. Come back to me, correct me with a word, not with emotion, not with a tantrum. Correct me with a word in context, and I will receive it. The you in verse 11 is singular, Ahaz. The you in verse 13 and 14 is plural. Because he's talking to the what? A sign not for Ahaz, as in you're going to have a bouncing baby boy and you're going to call him Hezekiah and he's going to be Moshiach, like Rabbi Hillel said. Do you know Rabbi Hillel was disgraced in his day, in his hour, in his time? For proclaiming that Hezekiah was the Moshiach. He was disgraced. Did you know that? Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So, Baruch Hashem Yahweh. So, we see here that he's talking in the plural to the whole house of David. Shalom, guys. Sorry, we're closing shop in about 10 minutes. We're closing shop about 5 or 10 minutes. Okay, because we have an early flight. We got to get to Knoxville. But thank you for coming anyway. Okay. You can stay for Chavarah, yes, for fellowship. Okay, so now Yahweh speaks to the plural, you. More than that, the sign was before the newborn would know how to choose good and evil. Now let's stay in verse 14. So the sign is given to who? To the whole house of David. And Yahweh doesn't say you singular, he says you in the plural. It's plural. More than that, the sign will be Emmanuel, not Emmanuel as in Yahweh will be with Israel through Hezekiah, but Yahweh will be with the whole house of David through the Almah. Now that's the great controversy. What does Yahweh mean by Almah? And we're not going to be able to finish it this week. We're going to have to finish it next week. What does Yahweh mean by Almah? So first of all, we see Yahweh talking to who? All 12 tribes. Number 2, we see Yahweh shifting from the singular to the plural. Number 3, he can be with all 12 tribes through Emmanuel, and Emmanuel is what? Elohim, with us. Who's us? King Ahaz's family? Who's us? King Ahaz's cousins? Us, meaning with the whole house of David. Baruch Hashem Yahweh. And we close with this. Now jump down to verse 15. He eats curds and honey when he knows to refuse evil and choose good. Now what this is saying is very simple. Listen. The Nahar, or the toddler, will know how to choose good and evil very early in life. Are you with me? That's very important, because don't miss this. The child, verse 16, will know how to refuse the evil and choose the good, and the land that you dread is to be forsaken by both her kings. Now, very important. There was another individual here, very important, and here's where the Jewish people get their ammunition. In verse 15, it says, before this Emmanuel, grows up, he will know to refuse evil and choose good. Can that be the Messiah? Yes, because he always refused evil. He always shunned evil. He always eschewed evil. He was tempted in all points as we are, yet without sin. So can this Emmanuel, this son of the Almah, the young woman, speak of Yeshua? It certainly can. But here's where the Jewish people try to get you. Or I should say the unbelieving Jews. Go down to verse 6.